Don't go to university. It is a scam. It is a scam that will reduce you to being a debt slave. You know, when you were like in school, in like high school or junior high or whatever, you learned about indentured servants that were brought to America in the in the 18th and 17th centuries. These indentured servitudes, in case you forgot, were basically people who had gone into so much debt that they couldn't afford to pay it back. And so what happened was that these people, richer people, landowners usually, would buy out the debt that these people owed and basically turn these people into slaves. They called it indentured servitude. Now, in modern America and in modern Great Britain, you are experiencing the same thing that's going on now insofar as education is concerned. You have to be crazy to go to college today. You are setting yourself up to be an indentured servant for the next 20 odd years. Let me throw some statistics at you first to explain why you should not go to university. I'm going to explain the statistics as they are now in terms of why it's not cost effective to go to university today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of how we got to this position, and then I'm going to talk to you about options, okay? If you want to be a debt slave and be working for the man, as it were, for the next 20 years, by all means, go to college. Go to college for 4 years, get drunk at the frats, learn a whole ton of shit that is perfectly useless, and at the end of that, I am going to laugh my ass off as I watch you going nuts every month trying to pay back your loan. Because remember, student loans cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. You go bankrupt, you're still going to owe your student debt. Okay? Let me get some statistics so that you can understand what we're talking about here. Now, as of October 2016, of those who graduated from high school that year, 69.7% enrolled in a university that October. 70% basically of those high school graduates enrolled in college right after graduation. College being 4-year programs or 2-year associate degree programs, community colleges, whatever. Okay, 70%. Now, that would lead you to conclude that everybody needs to go to college. And if you don't go to college, you're going to miss out. You're not going to make it in contemporary society. This isn't the case, but 70% are going to school. The average student debt that those students who are enrolling today are going to acquire is $30,100. That is, by the time they are no longer students, whether they graduate or not, they're going to owe $30,100. That's the average, okay? Now, the average of the people who are currently in the workforce, or let me phrase that, of the people who are currently no longer enrolled, who owe student debt, they owe on average $37,500. Now, you can ask yourself, why is it that they owe more money? Interest. Because when they graduated, they owed $30,100 or less, because the figure has been growing over the years. But those people who are currently out of the university system, who are paying back their loans, who have outstanding student debt, those people owe, on average, $37,500 because they've postponed their loans, and because they've postponed their loans, they've gotten more interest payments, and they owe more money. It's just a debt that keeps on growing. So you think to yourself, oh, I'm going to graduate with $30,000 in debt. Yeah, but soon enough, that debt is going to grow even as you pay it. Even as you pay it, it's going to be growing. Okay? So that's the first problem you start seeing right off the bat. Now, I have like a bunch of statistics, so let me read them to you carefully and discuss them. Now, the Pew Research Center, which is, of course, a pro-education research center, says that the difference between high school graduates and college graduates insofar as their income is $28,000 versus $45,500. That is a difference of $17,500, which is, in terms of percentages, 62% more. That is, high school graduates on average earn 28 grand, College graduates on average earn $45,500, so that's a difference of $17,500. After taxes, though, the figure is not so big. After taxes, only high school graduates earn just shy of $24,000. You know, when they pay, and this is based on California state taxes, okay? When they pay FICA, they pay federal taxes and state taxes, they wind up with about $24,000 in net income, those who have only a high school diploma, and those who have a college degree, presumably a 4-year college degree, they earn, what is it here, $35,800. So a difference of $12,000, which is roughly 50% more. Now, you would say to yourself, well, then it's worth it. If I'm going to graduate with $30,000 worth of debt, and the difference in yearly pay, net of all taxes, is $12,000, that means, you know, in 2.5, 3 years, just say 3 years, you know, for the sake of argument, you know, toss in a little bit of interest. In 3 years, I'll have paid off that debt, right? Well, no. Because see, this data is of all college graduates. That is, guys who are 22 years old and people who are 62 years old, everybody in between, okay? Now, what's undeniable is that those people who are currently in their 40s and 50s, who are college graduates, are earning a great deal more than people of their same age who are not college graduates, who only have a high school diploma. But you see, those people who are like my age, middle-aged farts, we graduated 20, 25 years ago, okay? Today, there is no difference. A guy who graduates from college today after a 4-year program is actually earning less money than the guy with just a high school diploma. Why? Because the guy who didn't go to college and got just a high school diploma has 4 years on you in terms of work experience. He's been in the work environment in whatever industry he chooses for 4 years. Whereas you have been, you know, farting around in college for 4 years, you know, getting drunk and hanging out at frat parties. That other guy, he graduated at 18 just like you did, but he started working and he's earning good money now. For you who are graduating now, what's going to happen is that you're not going to be able to pay your loan because you're not going to be earning enough money, so you're going to postpone it. You're going to postpone it, and that'll add more money to your debt, and soon enough, it's not going to be $30,000, it'll be $37,500, which is the national average for people with outstanding loans. Do you know how long it takes people to pay off their debt? On average, it takes them 21 years. That's how long it takes them. I'm guessing you're hearing that siren sounding, you know, very apropos to what I'm telling you. 21 years to pay off your student loan, okay? What does that mean? What does 21 years of paying a student loan mean? It means that for 21 years, you have to discount from your salary every month, you know, the $200, $300, $400, $500 every single month. Money that you could have used for other purposes, like for instance, getting a little nest egg together to buy your own home. Now, because of student loans, you're going to postpone buying your first home, and very likely you will not be able to buy your first home because you'll never be able to put together the down payment, okay? So you will postpone for at least a decade buying your first home, if you're able to buy it at all. You'll postpone having children. Now, this is a big deal. Because what will happen, especially to women, well, women who have a fixed amount of period of time where they can have children, instead of having children when they're, you know, in their mid to late 20s, they'll have to wait until they're in their mid to late 30s. Now that, for women, presents all sorts of complications because, see, a woman who has children in her mid to late 30s is more likely to have a child with serious health issues, okay? She's going to have more difficulty conceiving. She's going to be spending money with in vitro fertilization and all sorts of treatment programs in order to have a child, you see? Because she couldn't have them when she was younger because she didn't have the money because she was paying her student loans, okay? And it's not just, you know, the women, it's both. And what happens, of course, is that, see, college-educated people, birds of a feather tend to flock together. College-educated people tend to marry other college-educated people. And since they both have student loans, they're neither of them able to get out of this student loan hole that they are in, okay? And of course, it forces women to work as opposed to taking care of children. So even if they are able to have children like around, say, 30, 32, just for the sake of argument, they're going to have to stick their kids into some sort of daycare center and go back to work to earn the cash to pay off their loans. Because if it, on average, takes them 21 years to pay off their student debt, when they graduate, when they're 22, they're going to be paying their loan till the time they're 43 years old, okay? So they're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices for the sake of paying off their student loans. See? You start to see why this is a debt trap. Now, the guy who went to high school and didn't go to college, he doesn't have that problem, okay? Especially if he is self-employed, starts up some business of his own, he is going to be sitting pretty because he's going to have 4 years ahead of somebody who went to college. He's going to be doing his own business. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that he has a gardening business, okay? I mean, a gardening business, the most simple business that you could possibly have. He's got a pickup truck and a lawnmower, and he's going and mowing people's lawns. And then maybe over time, maybe after a year or two, he hires a couple of people. Maybe after 3, 4, 5 years, he's got 5 people working for him, mowing all the lawns of, you know, some suburban area, right? So just when you are graduating from college, this guy has been working for 4 years in his little gardening business, making good money. He's got 5 other pickup trucks with 5 other, pairs of gardeners going around some suburb, and he's making decent money, okay? It's not rocket science. It's not the most intellectually fulfilling business you can imagine, but he's earning decent money. He's going to be able, if he isn't already able, to buy his own place. By the time he's 30, he'll be able to afford his own place, be able to afford having kids and building a family. Whereas you're going to be still paying your student loans. You're going to be living with your girlfriend who's in the same boat as you, still paying off student debt, crazy, I mean, just going crazy that you don't lose your job, because if you lose your job, you don't have any savings to fall back on because you haven't been able to save because you've been paying these student loans. And what do you have to show for it? You went for 4 years to this college, okay? And unless you go to an Ivy League school or a top-tier school, a college degree is not going to give you a leg up in just about any business. There are very few businesses where a college degree is actually necessary. I'm going to get to that in a second, because there are occupations where you need to have a college degree. But before we get into that, I want to talk about something, I want rather you to understand why this is the case, why somebody today who does not go to college is going to wind up in a much better financial position than you are who go to college today, okay? Now, why did this happen? Why is there so much debt? Well, because you see, 30, 40 years ago, it became a priority, a political priority, to have as many college-educated people as possible, because it was assumed that, see, people who have a college education tend to do better, or tended to do better. Not the case anymore, but 30, 40 years ago, that was the case. Now, why was this the case? Because 30, 40 years ago, only about 10% of the population went to college. And there were 2 kinds of people who went to college back in 1977, 1987. Those people whose parents were well off enough to afford to pay the college, and those people who were very smart, who probably came first-generation college graduates. But you see, those people, they were the top 10% of the population. Either they inherited their position because their parents were well off, or they earned their way into a college slot. But those people who went to college did get the better jobs, the managerial, professional jobs. They earned more money. They had a better lifestyle. And so the thought was, well, everybody should have college, okay? I mean, we wanted everybody to be a college graduate, but we didn't want anybody to sweep the floors, you see? Everybody, just assumed that everybody who goes to college and, voila, everybody's going to be comfortably upper middle class, but that's just not the case. So we have now 70% of students going to college, and those 70% of high school graduates who are going to college, they're not all going to wind up having great lives. Only some of them are, Most of them are just going to have, you know, the same jobs, the same level of jobs that their parents and grandparents had 40, 50, 60 years ago, only with a college degree that is perfectly useless and all this student debt. Now, the political decision was made 30, 40 years ago that everybody should get a college degree, and so the government started handing out a lot of loans and guaranteeing loans, and there were a lot of grants and all the rest of it. And William Bennett, who was the education secretary of Ronald Reagan back in the mid-80s, he wrote a very famous op-ed in the New York Times in 1987, and he posited a hypothesis that became known as the Bennett hypothesis, and the hypothesis was very simple. He said, as there is more grants, government grants for students to go to university, the price of university is going to go up. And he was absolutely right. People at the time criticized him, said they didn't know what he was talking about, blah, 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 but it was obvious and it proved to be true. In 1995, a private four-year university averaged about $13,000 a year. Today, it is $39,000 a year. It's gone up threefold. For college universities, state universities like University of California, University of Michigan, and all the rest of it, on average, it cost in-state residents $2,500 a year to go to the state university. Today, it costs 4 times that, $10,000 per year for an in-state resident, okay, to attend a university, a college, a state college, okay? Those are the prices today. Now, there's another factor. See, students were given more loans. Now, they were given more loans, and some of you who have gone to university or currently are in university, you've seen it. The administrators have all this money and they do all these stupid programs and they make these stupid buildings and they have all this administrative staff. And you're like, why are we wasting all this money on all this crap? And the answer is obvious. Because they can. Because they're getting this money from the students. They're funneling these secured loans from the lenders through the students to the universities, and the universities and the administrators are taking this money, and instead of getting better faculty, they're making buildings. They're hiring more administrative staff that are not necessary. They're creating all of these administrative layers that are not necessary, and that bulks up the price of the university, and the university can pass along these costs to the students because the students have been led to believe, they've been propagandized to believe that they have to go to university or else they're not going to have a good life. They're going to have a miserable life if they don't go to college. Okay? And so students sign their names on the promissory notes. They take more loans, more and more loans, and they saddle themselves up with $30,000 worth of debt in fulfillment of the Bennett hypothesis. See? And this is what's going on today. Now, there's another aspect to this. The administrators love student loans because it gives them more money to pay themselves better salaries and hire more people that are in need and all the rest of it. Build prestige buildings that are perfectly useless and so forth and so on. Now, on Wall Street, there's a whole other sector of the economy that loves student loans, and that's Wall Street, the Wall Street banks, and I'll explain why. You see, the safest investment in the United States are presumably treasury bonds. Treasury bonds are essentially debt instruments. They are basically promissory notes that the US government signs and promises to pay people in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, whatever. Student loans are also bundled up into bonds, debt instruments. Of course, they pay more than treasury bonds because all of the bonds pay more than treasury bonds, okay? Because presumably, treasuries are the safest investment. Since they are the safest investment, they pay the lowest interest rate. Any other debt instrument pays a higher interest rate, right? Student loans pay a higher interest rate, but here's the kicker. You see, student loans, you cannot get out from a student loan via bankruptcy. You cannot discharge your obligation through bankruptcy. If you go bankrupt, all your debts get wiped away in bankruptcy court except your student loans. You have to pay them no matter what. Now, insofar as the student loans, well, it's a little bit complicated because the system changed back with Obamacare, because one of the factors that changed was the FFELP loans, but that's overcomplicating the issue. But believe me when I'm going to tell you about what I'm about to tell you is sort of like an oversimplification of the problem, but it is essentially correct, which is that these loans, because you cannot discharge them in bankruptcy court, and because also a lot of them are guaranteed by the federal government, it means that these loans, in a practical sense, are safer than treasury bonds, and yet they pay more interest rate. They pay a higher interest rate. Right now, there are a lot of FFELP loans that are paying out 5%, 7% some, because they have been mispriced, because the market does not understand, or a lot of people do not seem to understand, the ratings agencies especially don't seem to understand that these loans, since you cannot discharge your obligation via bankruptcy court, they can never go bad. They're guaranteed and, of course, legally enforced via the bankruptcy court that does not allow you, the debtor, to discharge your loan. You see? Back in 2008, there was that whole crisis, subprime loan crisis, where all these bombs blew up. They went broke because a lot of people stopped paying their mortgages and they got their houses taken away, but they didn't know anything because, they left behind the house. They were foreclosed upon, right? But see, in student debt, you can never be foreclosed on. You can never leave your debt behind. See? So Wall Street loves student loans because it's guaranteed money. Okay? And good money. All right? And if you know how to play the bond market, you can take that 4.25%, that extra little sliver over that premium over treasury bonds, and you can maximize that 2.05%. You can leverage it, you can make a ton of money, and it's guaranteed. It's the best thing ever. Wall Street loves student loans, and so they encourage it. They throw money at the government to encourage the government to give more loans to students. And so students sign the promissory notes because students are morons. And the parents are terrified. Students don't know what they're doing, so they sign. The parents are terrified that their kid is not going to have a good life. So they encourage the kid, just sign the papers, sign the promissory notes, I'll co-sign with you, you go to college and you'll have a good life. But you're not going to have a good life. You're going to have a shit life. You're never going to be able to get out from under this debt. Okay? And the guy who today you're thinking is a fucking loser because he's not going to college and he's setting up a little lawn mowing business, let's talk in 5 years. That loser is going to be making 50 grand a year net after taxes. He's going to have a nice little nest egg. He'll be able to buy his own place. He'll be able to start a family before he's 30. And you are going to be a barista in a fucking Starbucks waiting for your life to begin and watching as every month $200, $300, $400 of your pathetic, miserable little barista salary gets chopped off and sent to fucking Wall Streeters. How you like them apples, huh? See, that's the reality of the situation. You are getting fucked. But of course, nobody tells you this. Now, there are some people who actually do need a college degree. Mostly people in STEM fields. STEM fields and engineers, okay? Engineers especially. You need the accreditation from college, but also you need the training for those particular fields. I'm talking sciences, technology, engineering, math, okay? You need that. There are other professions like doctor. You have to go to college. You have to study organic chemistry. You have to study biology and so forth and so on before you can go to medical school, before you can go and get your master's or doctorate in engineering or computer sciences or what have you, okay? In those cases where college is essentially functioning as a trade school, in those cases, you have to go to college. In tech, engineering, medicine, law, but I mean, who wants to be a lawyer? But that's another story. Now, of course, if you want to be an academic, if you want to be a professor of history, say, yes, of course, you have to go to college. But if you're going to go to college to find yourself and you don't really know what you want to do with your life, college is the worst place to go. You're setting yourself up for all this debt to fart around and grow a bit of maturity while in college. It would be cheaper for you to go to a shrink every day who charges you $100 a day $100 a session rather, and go every single day than go to college. College is a complete waste of your money, a complete waste of your time if you don't know what you're going for, if you don't know what career goals you have in mind. If you're just going to go there and try different things, you're going to be throwing money away, okay? And you're going to be wasting time. And you're not going to learn anything about yourself. You know why? Because you only learn about yourself when you have difficulties, when you confront difficulties and overcome them. You see? See, when you climb Mount Everest, it's fucking hard. And when you get to the top, you have discovered a lot about yourself. When you get to the top of Mount Everest, and more importantly, when you get to the bottom, okay? Because lots of people have gotten to the top of Mount Everest, but not all of them have gotten all the way down, okay? That kind of challenge, where it's touch and go whether you're going to survive, you learn there. In that situation, that's where you learn. Where, you know, there's the real possibility of failure. But colleges today will never flunk a student. Why? Because they don't want to antagonize their customers. Because administrators will do whatever is necessary to make sure that students don't flunk out. So if you take soft options, you know, of course there are going to be soft options. You know, these soft options of like, you know, women's studies, sociology of pop culture, crap like that. Stuff that is just a complete waste of your time. It sounds great. It sounds terrific. It sounds like a lot of fun. Oh yeah, I'm taking this class on Harry Potter. You know, it's a complete waste of your fucking time because it's not going to challenge you. You're going to be spending money through the roof and, more importantly, taking on debt through the nose to learn about fucking Harry Potter. You know, and the, you know, the epistemic reality of Hogwarts and some shit like that. You know, what the fuck? You are throwing money away. You are going to be wasting your time and digging a hole in yourself that will take you decades to get out of. So unless you know for a fact that you want to be an engineer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be something where you need the accreditation of college, if you're just going there to find yourself, don't go. Don't go because you're just setting yourself up for failure. Okay? Go to college if you know exactly what you're studying. If you, for instance, want to get an MBA and work for a big corporation, then fucking A, go to college, get as good grades as you can, then go to MBA school. Now, I'll tell you right now, by the way, if you want to have a high-flying career in the corporate environment, like in New York and stuff, and like, you know, play at the big boys table, as it were, you're going to have to go to a name brand school. Because if it's Palookaville College in Podunk, Kansas, nobody's going to give a shit about you. It's a perfectly useless degree, okay? So you have to go to a name brand school. I mean, you know, if you don't go to anything better than Northwestern, I mean, just pack it in, because people are not going to take you seriously just because you went to some shitty little college in the middle of flyover country, okay? You have to understand the reality of the situation. So, because I'm saying in a very disorganized way, see, if you are going to buy a credential, which is what you're doing when you go to university, you have to buy the right credential from the right university, not a crappy one, okay? Don't go to college. It is a waste of your time and money, and you will regret it for the rest of your life, because it will postpone your life and you will be a debt slave. This is modern indentured servitude. See, when people are indentured servants, they don't tell you. They don't come up to you and say, you know, you're an indentured servant. But that's the reality of this situation. Don't be a fool. Don't go to college. Do anything but don't go to college.